Hey guys, this is Rachel from Cypress Textiles, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Milky Way motif from the 2022 VVCAL, and it's actually called the Milky Way Galaxy motif. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. This is Shapekiss Katona, and I'm using a 3mm hook. Alright, so I threw a slip knot there, and I'm just going to do chain 3 and then slip stitch in the third chain from the hook to make my ring. And in the center ring, I'm going to jam 18 double crochet in there. So first I'm going to start with a beginning DC. So go straight in with a single crochet. I'm already having trouble with that one. So the other 17 stitches are going to be a squish, but we're going to get them in there. Okay, you can also chain 4 or magic ring, whatever you prefer for your center, whatever's easier for you. All right, so single crochet and chain 1, so that's your first DC, and then 17 more double crochet in the center ring. So I will show you that when I'm done. Okay, I'm just jumping in to show you. I think I have 13 stitches in there right now. So let's see, 4, 8, 12, yeah, 13. So I still have 5 more to go. And you can see there's like a tiny amount of space right here to fit the 5 stitches, but we're gonna do it. Just keep on pushing those stitches around and you're gonna discover more real estate to stick those stitches. Okay, so I'm done with the 18 total double crochet, including the beginning DC. And I did go ahead and pull on the tail to close the center ring because I've been working over the tail the whole time. And then I joined with the slip stitch in the chain of the beginning DC. So right into the chain itself. Okay, so now we're gonna kind of elongate our loop a little bit to the height of a puff stitch. And we're gonna work a puff stitch into the next stitch. So just yarn over and just kind of be loosey-goosey when you make this puff stitch because you don't want it too tall, but you also don't want just the world's shortest puff stitch. So you're going to, well, let me show you again since I talked through it. Just yarn over, insert your hook, draw up a loop, and you're gonna do that 3 times. Insert your hook and draw up a loop. So that's 1, 2, and 3. All right, and then you can go ahead and draw the yarn through all those loops, and that's your puff stitch. Okay, so this is how I complete a puff stitch. And in some patterns, the next chain is considered to be like a closing stitch for the puff, but that's not how I write my patterns because I just find that it confuses things. So this is the end of the puff stitch. Now you're just gonna chain 1, and then we're gonna make the next puff stitch in the next stitch. So here we go. Okay, next puff stitch, draw the yarn through all the loops, and chain 1. Okay, so let me show you something. I'm gonna make 1 more puff stitch, and then I'm gonna show you kind of what happens in between puff stitches. So when I make my chain 1, once I do my next puff stitch, this is my chain 1, and this is kind of like another chain that gets created when you make a puff stitch. So it's only to the right of the puff stitch. It's not on this side. It's only on this side. So whenever you chain 1 and then you make a puff stitch, it's almost like a chain 2 space in there, even though you've only chained 1. So that's how this round is best completed. So just make your puff stitch how I did without closing it, and then chain 1 and then continue. And that's gonna be your repeat. Just puff stitch, chain 1 all the way around. And that's how I always do my puff stitches. So that's nothing different than what we've been doing before. I just thought I would explain it a little bit since there's only 1 chain in between these puff stitches. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish doing all 18 puff stitches and all 18 chain 1 spaces in between, and then I will show you when it's finished. All right, so here is the round when it's complete, and I joined with the slip stitch into the chain that's right after the first puff stitch. So just straight into that chain that's right above the first puff stitch is where I made my slip stitch join. All right, so now we're on to round 3, and we're going to make a beginning 3DC cluster in this first chain space. So I'm just going to start with a single crochet, no chaining up, and a chain 1. All right, and now we're going to work a 2DC cluster basically, and then that beginning DC plus the 2DC cluster is what's going to make the beginning 3DC cluster. So yarn over and draw up a loop and pull the yarn through 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over, draw up a loop and pull the yarn through 2 loops on the hook, and then draw the yarn through all 3 loops, and that's your first 3DC cluster of the round. And then I'm going to chain 2. And now I'll just make chain 2, 3DC cluster all the way around. So yarn over and insert your hook, draw up your loop, pull the yarn through 2 loops in the hook 3 times. All right, and now you have 4 loops this time. Draw the yarn through all 4 loops, and you've got your 3DC cluster, and chain 2. And just keep on going like that all the way around. This is pretty much a starburst hexagon. So that's kind of the vibe that we're getting right here, and I'll show you guys how round 3 looks when it's done. Okay, here's my round, and I haven't joined yet because I do always like to show how I join into a cluster. So I show this every video that has a cluster, but just go ahead and grab all the loops that are on that beginning cluster, which is 3, and then make your slip stitch into that area. And now your first cluster looks just like all the rest. All right, so in the next chain space, we're going to start our next round, and I'm going to slip stitch in the first chain. So just straight into the first actual chain itself, not into the chain space, because I just like the way this looks better. Just slip stitch straight into the chain itself, and then make a beginning DC. So single crochet, chain 1, and then chain 1 again for the corner space. All right, so now we're going to begin the round with 2 double crochet in the same chain space, and then chain 1, and now we're going to make 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, chain 1 3 times. So 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, chain 1. All right, and it's actually, the next one is your corner, and it's 2 double crochet, whoops, in the corner, and chain 1, and then 2 double crochet in the same chain space to complete your corner. All right, so here's how the side looks. So we've got our 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet in this corner over here, and here's our first corner with our beginning DC, chain 1, 2 DC, chain 1, 2 DC, chain 1, 2 DC, chain 1, 2 DC, chain 1, and then 2 DC in the same stitch. So that's how our side looks, and that's how we're going to keep doing our repeat 5 more times until we're back to the beginning. Okay, so that's the end of round 4. And in the very last stitch that you make, the repeat is going to have your 2 double crochet into this first corner, but it says omit the final double crochet. So that's why you only are going to have 1 DC in this corner when you finish. That way, whenever you're all done, your beginning DC is there already. So you've got your 2 DC, chain 1, 2 DC in this very first corner. And now just slip stitch into the chain of your beginning DC, and your round is finished. So now we're going to work the next round, which is similar to this previous round. Just go into your chain space with a single crochet, chain 1, and then chain 1 for the corner, and 2 double crochet in the same chain space. And then we're not going to chain in between our DC groups this time. So I'm going to make 2 double crochet in the next chain space. And then 3 double crochet in the next chain space. Okay. And then 2 double crochet in the next 2 chain spaces. And the second of those 2 chain spaces is our corner. So now I'm ready to chain 1 for the corner and 2 double crochet in the same chain space. All right, and I'll show you the side. So this is how the side looks. And you can see we've got our beginning DC, chain 1, 2 DC, and then next chain space, 2 DC, next chain space, 3 DC, next chain space, 2 DC, and then our corner, 2 DC, chain 1, 2 DC. All right, so that's how we're going to work all the way around till you're back to the beginning. All right, so that's the end of round 5. And I've made my 1 double crochet in the first corner and then made my slip stitch into the beginning DC. And so that completes that round, and now we're just on to our final round, only 6 rounds in this hexagon. So very easy round, work 3 single crochet in your corner chain space, and then 11 single crochet, just basically making 1 in every stitch across until you get to your next chain space, and then 3 single crochet in the next chain space. So you're just gonna make single crochet in all the stitches around, making sure to put 3 into your corner chain spaces. All right, and just double check you have 84 single crochet around whenever you are done. And then you're just gonna slip stitch in the first single crochet and cut your yarn, weave your ends. And I have one finished. So this is the completed Milky Way Galaxy motif from the 2022 VVCAL, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye guys.